Today in the NY DIY Mechanical Garage, we're going to deal with altitude and make it have attitude. Today we're going to lower this 2024 BMW X5M Competition using H&R springs. This is a very good friend of mine and client from the southern New York, Long Island area. And he's come up here to give me his machine to lower it. So stay tuned. Let's roll the intro. All right, here we are. We already completed one side, the left front lowering spring installation. So at least I had an idea on how to go through things and the trial and error of things. So we're going to start now by doing the right front. So what we're going to do is first is you had this front strut brace. There's actually three pieces to it. There's actually one big piece here. All right. This individual has a cold air intake system, which looks kind of fancy schmancy. But you have the strut brace in three pieces. The main part, and then on each side of the strut tower, there's actually additional braces that go right to the firewall, as you can see back there. I don't know if you can see the bolts. 1, 2. All right. In order to get to the back ones, you got to take apart the upper engine cover or engine fascia, whatever you want to call it. All right. In this case, we're going to do the right front. So what we're going to do is we're going to take apart this bolt back there for the strut brace. 1. Loosen the strut brace up right here. Actually, take all the strut brace bolts out, but leave there's one under here and one under the other side. You can leave them there because you want to be able to do this. You want to be able to lift this up. Take these two 18mm bolts out. Lift this up, and this strut piece will come right through. So just hang tight, and I'll show you. All right, now that we get the top prepped, we still have more to go on the top. Now we need to work around the wheel well area. So what we're going to do is disconnect the connectors. The shock control connector, which controls the shock dampening, is right back here. You can see my hand. Actually, follow me over here. You can see it right back there. Right there is where the shock dampening module is. You got to disconnect that along with the brake sensor behind in the wheel well over here. You can see right in there where my finger is. Disconnect the connector in there, and then disconnect the ABS and brake sensor lines along with the sensor, level sensor, which is right over here, like that. And then also take this level sensor out because you need to actually really move this whole assembly around a lot, and you don't want to break this piece. This is very expensive. Move these around like so. Get these out of the way. Next, you're going to want to remove the lower section of the anti-sway bar bolt. It's going to be an 18mm. And you can actually, this is an electronically controlled anti-sway bar. So you can actually, once you take the end link out, you can actually move the sway bar up and out of the way. All right, so next that we have, after all of our connectors are off and our leveling sensor is off, next, oh yeah, also the sway bar disconnection. Also, I just want to show you right here, look how you can move it. It's done electronically, so you can actually move it. It's really easy to disassemble. So next what we're going to do is we're going to remove this shield right here, which I'm pointing to, which is 4 10mm bolts right there, 2 on top, and then 2 right in the very, actually 3 in the very bottom. You take this cover off, it's an exposed lower control arm bolt and the lower strut bolt. The key is taking these bolts out so you can swing the whole spindle assembly out to drop the strut as one whole assembly out through the bottom. So once we take this cover off, take these bolts out, drop the lower control arm out of the way, the strut can be taken right from the bottom. Okay, like we described before, the trick is of moving this, getting this whole spindle to move outward this way. As you can see, it swing. But you gotta be careful you don't separate the axle from the inside yoke. All right, but again, disconnect the lower control arm from the pivot point to the frame. Okay, and then the lower strut bolt, as you can see right here. I'm going this side, which is right here. So you can see moving with my thumb. Drop this lower control arm. It helps if you have a second person to, again, pull this out a little bit. Not much, because you don't want to take that, you don't want to separate the CV axle from its yoke. Out a little bit. Have a person on the bottom loosen the top bolts, which you can get from the top side of the engine compartment. And this whole strut assembly will drop right out. Now we're ready to lower the strut. It's going to be the 3 inverted Torx bolts right here. 1, 2, 3 in the back. And it is the size E12. Once we lower those, the strut will come right down. Okay, now that we got the strut out, as you can see, we took it out from here. We worked it out. Again, it's nice to have a second person on hand so you can actually drop the strut out while you're up top loosening up the bolts. Okay, now that the strut assembly is out, there are many ways to compress a coil spring. This is a very dangerous part. Make sure you have some decent tools to do it with. We were able to purchase this Vevor from Amazon. I highly recommend it because this is a great kit. It comes with various size spring compressor adapters along with protective sheets to compress the strut assembly. We are using the H&R Sport Spring, which lowers it about, how much, Rob? About 1.5 inches stance. So compressing the factory spring is a little scary because obviously it's taller and it's under more pressure. Compressing the H&R Sport Spring, it's still a much stiffer spring, but it's easier to compress because it is about 1.25 inches smaller. So we're going to compress this spring. We're not going to video it because, again, there's different kinds of spring compressors. There's this one. I have a very old school one that you got to say at least 5 Our Fathers in order to use it. They're right there. These got me through a lot throughout the years, but they don't compare to a kit like this. So we're going to compress the spring, and we're going to get back. Okay, here's the completed strut spring assembly with the installed H&R Sport Spring. Just a note, you can mark the top of the upper strut mount and the actual shock assembly itself. I know the rule of thumb is to line everything up so it goes back together the same way. When you disassemble the strut assembly, lubricate the base plate of the actual strut itself, because once you install the top section of the upper strut mount to the body of the car, you can actually twist this for fine adjustment to get this piece or this dog bone over the lower control arm assembly to bolt it in. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on that, because if you don't line these up, it's not the end of the world. You can always, once you bolt this up, you can actually twist this, get a pry bar in there, something like that, or even twist it with your hands. It was that lubricated enough to twist to do your fine adjustments, again, to get it over the lower control arm. So now we're going to install it in the vehicle. Rob's going to push it up to the bottom. I'm going to bolt up to the top, and then we're going to reassemble. All right, now that we get the fronts done, all nicey H&R Sport front springs, now we are working on the rear. Now we already did one side, so now we know what to do with the other side. We already started with the left rear. Now we're doing the right rear. So what we're going to do is, you're in the back of the car. This is where the spare tire is. You lift it up on either side there, and here, pull these little soft foam things out of the way, and there are your 4 bolts for the top upper strut mounts to drop the rear shock. Okay, so I'm going to lift the truck up and show you the points of where to loosen up so you can drop this rear. All right, now that we're under the vehicle, first thing you're going to do is remove the aero shield or dust shield, or however you want to call this, airfoil two 10mm bolts. It drops from here and it falls down. First thing you're going to do is mark your wheel alignment, okay? You can get a wheel alignment done after if you'd like, but I use a punch on both sides of the rear eccentric. Okay, you can see right there. Mark those up. Drop this down on this side, because when you loosen this bolt, this control arm bolt, it's going to hit the exhaust right here. So just lower this and the bolt will slide right out. Then after this is loosened up, loosen up the rear sway bar bolt, okay? And then after that, loosen up the shock bolt. This is a ball joint right here, so what's going to happen is the swing arm's going to swing right down here and just angle. You're going to lower the car, go back to the top, and get the 4 16mm screws or bolts, and the rear strut will just drop right down from the bottom. So once I get all the stuff loosened up, I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, and this is now what it looks like. I took my eccentric cam bolt out for the lower control arm pivot point, sway bar point, lower strut bolt. This is how it is. See, there's the ball joint in action right there. So just literally let it swing down, and that's it. Now we're going to lower the vehicle. My buddy's going to go on the creeper right there, known as Tim, and I'm going to loosen up the top bolts, and the strut assembly he's going to again guide right down through this area here, right down here, and pull it right out, and we're going to compress the spring and put it back up. Okay, here's the rear strut assembly. We're going to swap it out for that bad boy right there. We had to use the Hail Mary spring compressors to actually compress the H&R spring. We were able to use our fancy spring compressor to take off the old spring, but when it came to the new spring, we had to use the Hail Mary ones. So these are the tools we're using. I'm not going to record us swapping out the spring because it's just too much time and effort. We just want to get this done. Hang 10 for the next. All right, we're done. All back together. I think it looks pretty damn good. It's got wheel spacers on there. Went from having altitude now to attitude. Get it? Hee hee. How do you like it, Rob? All right, well, everyone, thank you very much for watching the NYDIY Mechanical Garage. Any questions on this, feel free to contact me at nydiy22@gmail.com. We're going to go for a test drive. Have a good day. Be safe.